I'll start with you. We just kind of have to pass the mic back and forth. With Stay, can you tell me a little bit about, just talk a little bit about how that idea came about, how the project came together? So are you a recent graduate or still a student, is that right?
Yeah, so I'm in my senior year right now at the University of Montana in Missoula, and I made this film for a class that I was taking at the time. So this was last fall, directing the fiction film. It was a film directing class, and this film I made this film for my final assignment in that class. We had done various exercises up till that point, but we finally got to make a film from scratch about whatever we wanted. We got to write the script ourselves and everything. So the moment like it's kind of free reign. You kind of feel a pressure to make something that really means a lot to you, and that you feel passionate about, and that's personal to you. And it took me some time to get to the story that I felt that way about. I went through other versions of stories that dealt with similar themes, but didn't hit on the emotions that I think I really wanted to convey. At that time, my mom had passed away just a few months ago, so it was something that was on my mind. And deep down, I wanted to tell a story about that, and that came through in some of the early drafts. But I was a little hesitant to go there with it and to tell a story that was really personal. And really vulnerable. And after going through a few different versions of the story and talking to my professor of that class, Tobin Addington, who's in the special thanks, I finally, kind of got the courage to finally go there and tell the story that I told.
Mm-hmm. So you told a story that was about loss, but just in a different way, that one that wasn't quite so direct.
Yeah, exactly. Stories that dealt with loss and maybe imminent sort of death on the horizon, but we're still, slightly disconnected from the emotions that I was going through personally. I think it was kind of a protected. I was putting up a shield a little bit. I didn't quite want to go there,
well,
but
that makes sense. So
yeah.
His monologue then at the end, was that really derived from your personal experience or what you were feeling at the time?
Yes. That monologue at the end I went through a lot of different versions of that monologue. Some versions, I'll just say I went through a lot of different versions of that monologue. I had a lot of very late nights spent writing different versions of that monologue, because that really is the climactic moment of the film in my eyes, is that moment when he finally just lets it all out and lays his emotions out on the table. So I knew I needed to find a version that felt right to me, and that really reflected my emotions in a way that I felt did justice to my mom's memory and to my memories of sort of the situation and the time leading up to her passing, and I feel good about it. But it took a long time to get there.
Well, I love how the emotional arc of the argument works itself out. I think if it was for a directing class, I hope you got a good grade because I think you did a really good job with that. Just the way that the conflict starts out slow, then it rises to a peak, and then there's this he sort of relents his anger, and it dips back down and then opens up to vulnerability. It's really nice how that all plays itself out. Regardless of whether it's in the script, but just the way that you directed it, the way you staged it, is very effective, I think.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about the process of working with your actors, and did you do a lot of rehearsal with these scenes?
Yeah, so I was the same semester that I made the film, that I was in that directing class. I was also in an acting 1 class because I also really enjoy acting. So I was taking acting 1 at the time, and the 2 actors in the film I actually met in that class.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and they were interested in auditioning, so I auditioned them along with a couple other people, and it was clear very early on that they had a really good grasp on the script, and I auditioned with that monologue because I felt like that would give me a good sense. And Gabe Malik, the actor who plays Andrew, he just nailed the monologue even in the audition before any direction. He had a really good grasp of it. So with the monologue, it didn't take, even though it's an extremely important moment in the film, it didn't take too much additional work with him on that. I loved the way he paced it out in his audition. So, but as far as rehearsals go, one thing that was very important in the process was rehearsing in the space, finding time to rehearse on location. Mm-hmm. We did do one rehearsal that was not on location. We found some space on the university to rehearse, and that was great. And that we found some really good moments in that rehearsal. But I wanted to make sure that we could rehearse on location, because with the camera, you may have noticed that there's some long takes in the film, moments where the camera doesn't cut for a very long time. So all of those camera movements, along with the actors blocking, had to be pretty spot on, because we also the homeowners were very gracious with their time and their space, but we didn't want to push that too much. So we didn't have a ton of time, like you usually don't have in film. So that on-location rehearsal was very important, and it was very productive. And the fact that we were able to do that, I think, made the actual shooting of it much smoother than it would have been otherwise.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Gary and Michael, can you same question? Can you tell us a little bit about how how this project came together, where the idea came from, and how you came to work together?
Well, we've been friends for 20 some odd years. He's brilliant with the camera, just as a gift. And I was just tired of not working anymore. So I wrote this. And it's kind of a personal piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's kind of a downer, but it is based on reality, in that you see my early headshot there. They show when I had hope and a waistline and hair and an agent. And I was going to go there, and be everything, and then I was sort of one once in a while. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I wrote that. And the reason it's so short is that's all the time it took to tell that story of the final downward arc.
Why do you think he chose to make those phone calls to those two people?
I think in his own way, the character, as I saw him, is very, very much about himself. Mm-hmm. Very, very egotistical, and that's what's killing him. And I think in some way, he wanted to say goodbye, in his own way, without telling him it was goodbye, because I'll call you back.
Yeah.
I will call you back.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty much the point of it, is that he knew he wasn't going to call his daughter back. Mm-hmm. He tells her he's ahead of her 1-0 in Emmys. Yeah. I don't have that in the script, but that Emmy came in 1986. Mm-hmm. That's a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Michael, how?
Great job. Mine was pretty simple. I do a lot of commercial work, and I own production company. I've worked for the news stations, but I've also been blessed to be a part of a lot of local projects. Trevor Stiles has been instrumental in bringing some films to town, and so I've been a part of those. But in this story particular, it was a struggle when it comes to filmmaking because I made it a couple years ago, and I wasn't thrilled with the topic, especially I felt the connections, and I have to have a reason that I'm going to do it. And the original cut we submitted, we were kind of late. I'm glad we didn't get in because as I took about 2 years to marry on it and kind of think about it, and in my own life, my father's a Vietnam vet who's struggling with similar. He's amazing at ornithology. He was in the Forest Service, but even he's struggling with feeling like he has nothing to share. It's over. He was at the top of his peak, and he feels like there's nothing to give. But I kind of changed my philosophy on this. At the end, we even changed it a little bit. I left it open because I'd like to believe somebody called back. I believe that they have the value, no matter what their age is, to have that connection with people. And so the reason I did this was so hopefully Gary sees how much I love him and that you're never too old to do what you love. And I'm very blessed to be a part of this. So thank you.
Does anyone in the audience? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This film was also in the last fall, was in the San Francisco International Short Film Festival. We're proud of that, but we're more proud of this.
Well, yeah, I should mention, these two are both Billings based. So it's great to have Billings filmmakers in the program as well as, part of the meet in Montana. So because the festival is here. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for any? Yes.
Thank you both for these wonderfully personal films. My question is for Nathan, right? You mentioned the long takes and the few cuts, and I'm curious why that mode was attractive to you and why that style worked for the story you wanted to tell.
Ooh, that's a great question.
The question was about, just in case anyone didn't hear, about long takes and why that style worked. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that really draws me to the long take is it really allows you to be in the moment. I find that when it's done effectively, you kind of forget the camera's there. So it's really neat in that way. As far as I wanted it to feel very grounded in realism, and I didn't want to be too formalistic with the camera, right? So I wanted, and that's why we went the direction of doing handheld, and I wanted it to feel very realistic and very grounded. All around script, camera, everything. And the longer takes, I think they do allow you to feel very in the moment with the film, and you kind of get lost in the conversation, and like you're there. You're not aware of the camera. You're not aware of the editor. You're just watching these two characters, and you're watching the scene play out. So that was one thing that really drew me to it, because I personally have taken a lot of inspiration from a filmmaker named Andrew Hay. And if you're familiar with him, he's a great filmmaker. All of Us Strangers was his most recent film, and he did a TV show called Looking, which there was a scene from Looking that I was very inspired by, where two characters have an argument, and I noticed these longer takes, and I noticed how the camera kind of floated around the scene, and I found that we never jumped in time, we never jumped in perspective. We were just kind of sort of a fly on the wall to what's happening, and I think sort of the floating camera and the lack of cuts and the longer takes kind of allows you to feel like this fly on the wall, looking in on what's happening. So that was one thing, big thing that drew me to that style.
Okay, thanks. Does anyone else have a question for any of our filmmakers? Yes.
I have a question for the other side.
Okay.
Throughout your film, there's this kind of shadow vignette bordering most, or not all, of the shots of the video. I was wondering what kind of inspired that.
I'd love to answer that. I didn't think anyone would catch it. The the thing I wanted to do is I was trying to play with something different being in a room. You know, it's hard. And I was actually shooting on like an XF605, so I didn't have a lot of depth of field. But I wanted to play with it. I wasn't going to go with a black and white look either. I felt that was kind of a cop-out. I was trying to like get away from some of the tropey things that you happen just to get it done. So I always planned to do somewhat of a vignette to see if it, you know, to push it. But as I went black and white, I'm like, the more I can force it, if you rewatch it, it forces. I do commercial production, and the number one thing in TV, especially with commercial, is where does your eye go? And if your eye doesn't go to a product or something poignant, then you're losing the message. It can be the most beautiful looking commercial or the most beautiful looking short film. But again, like you said, and brilliantly said, is like it's the pacing, it's what's your message, what's your action. So I wanted to force you in a short 4-minute period to be forced to the lighter areas, and then to hopefully bring a little more grit to his face. I was playing with making it a clean look, and then I went grainy because I was like, let's play it old. You know, the way he feels he sees his life is this old black and white film that's fading off. And so that's why I chose not to go super clean. But thank you for noticing that. I honestly didn't think anyone would. Or if I just filled you full of shit, I hope it was really good. So.
Okay, any other questions from the audience?
Gary, when you said you had a movie named after you.
Oh, yeah. That was actually a coincidence.
All I was thinking the whole time was don't have ours right after this meeting.
I mentioned that to Brian at one point. I was like, I hope Gary's not going to be offended by
It's not a bad name, though.
the redemption for your name came through your film that followed this. So. Okay.
So you're available for acting, Gary, is what you're telling us. You're available. Yes. All right, everybody needs to hire Gary now.
I'm not done yet.
Good.
You know, we have another project which is short, but it's quite a bit longer. Checkmate, and we're hoping to film that maybe in the winter. There's so much talent in this state that I have friends who are actors, and I have lined up 2 of them. And if you knew who I said they were, you would know who I'm talking about. So, you know, you just keep moving forward till you can't. That's how you do it. Yeah, thank you.
Nathan, how about you? What's next for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I really like to write, and I really like to act. So right now I'm writing a TV pilot, and working hard at that, and I'm gonna try to write 2 TV pilots before I graduate in the spring. And I'm also working on the acting side of things too. I'm currently rehearsing for my 2nd stage play. I've been in a few short films, and I want to be in more. So if you know, just like Gary, if anybody is looking to cast people, you know, I am available. Please, please, please. I want to be in short films. I want to be in more short films. So, yes, just looking to keep acting and keep writing and keep telling stories that way.
Great. Well, you're both alumni now, so please submit again when you have your next project. Thank you all 3 of you for coming. Thank you to the audience, and we'll see you at the next screenings.